Here we go. Listen up. Oh, if you guys own any props that are full metal builds, you know how fulfilling that sound and that feel is. Today we're talking custom display stands. Yes, we will talk about this bad boy. Let's get to it. What is up, guys? Today we are talking custom display stands. I will get to the blaster we have in front of us. We will talk about that briefly, but today is really about my addiction to custom display stands. If you collect props, frankly, if you collect anything else, you know that a big part of having your stuff on display is having the right way to display it. A custom stand can add value to your prop, and in person it's going to add so much to the experience of seeing that thing. I've done a number of custom stands for some of my props. Some are just wood, some are acrylic, some are sculpted to look like rock and stone, and they seem to always add a lot when someone is coming in to check out your collection. Okay, so let's get it out of the way. Let's talk about this particular blaster, and then we'll move on to talking about this custom stand and how it was made. This is Boba Fett's EE-3 carbine blaster. It's based on an actual Webely Flare gun, not the exact model that was used in the film. This is a slightly different, significantly cheaper model, which was modified to look the part. So mostly metal, resin stock, functional scope. Everything works and moves as it should. I love this thing. It was a ton of work figuring out all the little greeblies and making the mods to make it more accurate. Great piece. So when it came time to display it, and this takes us to part two, I knew that the stand for this thing had to be right. I didn't want some plain acrylic stand. I didn't want to put this thing in just a plain old, acrylic box. I wanted it to have something, I wanted it to be something with some character. When you've invested a lot of money or a lot of time making something like this, go the extra mile and do the display. You're never going to regret it. Even if you have a prop which was maybe manufactured and it's a limited run, once you throw that custom stand on it, now you have a piece which really is unique. You're not going to find another one quite like it. Now listen, I love a good 3D print. There's a time and a place, like 3D prints can be cool. They allow you to do things with precision you could never, I shouldn't say never, that would be very hard to do just by hand. But a lot of what I do is with found parts or weird thrifted parts that are kind of upcycled into something that's a little bit more cool. So this stand is a wood plaque that I thrifted from Goodwill for $3 with some foam insulation board that has been cut and sculpted, and then that foam insulation board was covered with stucco patch. So I'll just walk you through the process really quickly. Let's start with the wood base. Yes, when you're building a custom display for a prop, you can go out and you can buy a piece of wood and finish it, and maybe you stain it, maybe you paint it. That's all good. I've done that before, but the beauty with smaller props like this is if you can score a thrifted kind of plaque or sign or wood, something or other, maybe it's even metal, all that finishing and manufacturing work is done for you. Now, granted, it's going to take a little bit of time to hunt down the right piece and to make sure that it has the right proportions. I usually hit up thrift stores once in a while and just try to collect an assortment of things so I have kind of a backlog of cheap finished wood. So I found this wood plaque. I said, you know what? We'll throw some feet on the bottom of that. We'll sand the top off, strip it, and get it ready for this. And the beauty is it's already sanded. It's already stained. It's already polyurethane. The finish is, factory solid, meaning that I get to save a ton of time, a ton of build time, just starting from that position. Next up, we took the blaster on that raw piece of wood, and I kind of set it in place and figured out where does this thing need to live and what do we need to support it. So inside of the rock area over here, there's just a simple wood support system. There's a couple chunks of 2x4 in there, and they are sandwiching against a straight thin piece of wood, which is carved out with a Dremel to fit the underside of this barrel. And then under the grip here, there's a little notch which takes the bottom little ring on the grip and lets this thing sit in nice and tidy. So before any sculpting or anything, you figure out the skeleton of your display stand, get that built. I like working with wood because it's simple, but there are other ways and other materials you can use to do that. Then it came time for the artsy part, right? So This is where I got some poly with some insulation foam board and broke that up into chunks, made some donut shaped type pieces and layered those right here up. And I covered that little wood skeleton system I had made to hold up that arm. And then over top of all these chunks of insulation board, I actually covered it with a stucco patch mix. This is an important step because it adds a little bit of fine texture, fills in some gaps, and really sells the rocky, textured, sandy look. This is kind of a Tatooine vibe, right, on this particular display. So the last thing to talk about is the nameplate. The nameplate is a small piece of wood. There's a laser printed decal that I made that goes in the front, throw a few screws in there. But the beauty is this, check this out. This bad boy is actually, it's magnetic. Now let's see if I can get this back on level from behind. We'll find out. And a lot of you guys are going, why would you need the nameplate to be magnetic? Here's why. When it comes time to store this or to move, or if you go to sell a piece and you want to be able to ship the stand out, custom display stands end up being really bizarre shapes. And if you do a floating nameplate like this, that thing kind of protrudes out there and it is ripe for breakage. By making it magnetic, or maybe you could even make a simple bolt or pin system that's just removable, by making the nameplate removable, you cut down on the risk of something breaking if you have to store or ship this thing. And it's just kind of a fun feature. If you wanted to swap the nameplate out for a different style, you're already built and set up to do that. There it is. Boba Fett's EE-3 on a custom display stand. I hope to share more of my stands in the future, and I'm hoping we're going to get around to actually building one. When I get the right prop that comes in, we'll do that. If you guys love Star Wars or science fiction, if you love prop replicas or statues, please subscribe. We are going to have a lot more content coming out. Everything from kind of DIYs and custom stuff to tips on collecting and reviews of different props and statues. Thank you guys for hanging out today. We'll talk soon. Later.